Roger Goff here, and how's the business in Los Angeles? With what you do in the music industry, and and all that stuff to help people out.
How is it? It's good. Although the music industry is certainly different than it used to be, but much different business. And a lot of my work now really is in the film business. Although I still do a lot of work with record labels and distributors and some artists.
Throughout all these years, it changed a lot for the music, because now you're doing more, film and all that stuff for the video industry.
Yeah, I kind of naturally moved in that direction anyway, although the changes in the music industry certainly made that an easier decision for me. The music industry, it's in some ways, I think for independent artists, it's better than it's ever been, because it used to be so much of a monopoly for larger labels and large distributors, and now it's much more democratic, and I think that independent artists have the ability to get their music out there and to find audiences and actually, make a living or make money that they probably, wouldn't have been able to make 10 years ago.
Do you think there's going to be a resurrection in this in the future sometimes?
I think it's a constantly changing business. I think every business is a constantly changing business. I mean, that's kind of a universal across all industries, is that things change, and technology tends to accelerate that change and cause things to change, sometimes in unpredictable ways. But a resurrection, if you mean, is it going to go back to the way it was? No, probably not. But is it getting better, and are there more opportunities for people to make money and have careers? Yeah, I think the argument could be made that that's true.
So in that sense, the internet is not killing it; it's making it better.
I think it's making it better for a lot of people. I think that it's making it a different business, and I think certainly for the large record labels and distributors, the internet has been a tremendous challenge, because they had a business model that depended on having a lot of control. And obviously, to the degree that the internet facilitates piracy and people stealing music, it makes it a much more difficult environment to make money. But even with that, I think that that's somewhat offset by the way that the internet allows you to reach the audience and allows people to hear your music who otherwise just never would have heard it.
Well, Roger, you can maybe tell us what you do in a day's work, let's say, and what you're about.
I'm primarily a transactional attorney. I used to litigate and go to court and fight lawsuits and battles and all that, and I don't do that anymore. I have partners who do that. So my business is primarily negotiating deals for various companies and individuals, and then drafting contracts for them, and a lot of times just giving them advice as to what their different opportunities are, and which might be the best opportunities, kind of being a strategic advisor to them.
Mm-hmm.
Then going and having a lot of meetings and getting new clients.
A lot of meetings. It never ends. There's always going to be work the next day for you.
Oh, I've never shown up. So far I've been doing this almost 25 years, and I've never shown up on any morning where I didn't have something to do.
Well, you're keeping busy then in this industry.
Oh yeah. I've always been busy.
You always been in LA?
I have. I was born here, and both my parents were actually born here, which is kind of unusual.
Did you go anywhere else? Travel sometimes, to other places in this business?
Not a lot. I spent a few months in Las Vegas back when I was in college. I was in the radio business then, and I went and worked at a radio station in Las Vegas. And I had a house up in the central part of California for a year, but I found myself, driving back to Los Angeles like every week, and so I ended up just moving back down here. Other than that, I've always been a Southern California guy.
Would you say the hot spot of the industry, films is still in California, Los Angeles area, and will be for a long time?
I think so. I mean, definitely there's a lot of film business here because the studios are here, and honestly, I think the reason that the film business has always been here is because the weather is pretty ideal, and we have a lot of different types of locations, and so it's just a really good place to make movies because you don't have to hassle with it being too hot or too cold or too wet. It's just it's pretty nice most days, and so that's not likely to change too much. And now the culture of Southern California and the culture of Los Angeles is so much built around the entertainment business that it's just unlikely that it would ever go away. With that said, the tax incentives that other states put in place, like New Mexico or Louisiana, are probably the two biggest ones. That certainly drew a lot of production out of state, and Canada has drawn a lot of production out of Southern California, and so it's not like this is the only place to make movies, and it's not like you have to be in Los Angeles in order to be in the movie business. But I think that it's certainly still the center of the industry, and probably will stay that way for a long time.
Because now with the cameras and stuff, everybody gets their HD cameras, and they're starting to film everything. Goes all on YouTube, so it's the way to look at things.
Very much so. I mean, I think that it's funny because somebody wrote a small blog post on this over the weekend, and I commented on it. They were talking about how the studios are going to suffer so much because production has been democratized in the way that you're saying. Because people use Red cameras or Canon cameras, which are relatively inexpensive, and you get really good-looking output from them, and the content looks great. And they were saying, how that's completely changing the business. And I think it's expanding the business in a really good way, and I think that people, certainly are going to look at a wider variety of content, and probably like it's been in the music business, I think some independent filmmakers will be able to get some inexpensive films out there and actually find audiences and make some money with it. But I don't think that drastically changes the model for the studios because the theatrical business is not going to go away. The difference between, if you look at what happened in the music industry and you look at the film industry, the difference is that nobody pays $20 to go sit in a room for a couple hours and listen to a record while they eat some popcorn. Because going to a film is an event. It's something that you do on a weekend. People want something to do, and going to a movie, even though it's gotten more expensive, is still relatively cheap entertainment, and people enjoy it. And I think that's going to continue to exist. And so while there you can make inexpensive films using all of the digital equipment that's available, and you can put them on YouTube, and people can watch them on their iPad, or even now, with all of the different ways that you can get it to your big screen TV, you'll be able to put inexpensive films on people's televisions without having to go through a lot of the layers of the business that you do now. But I don't think that makes the theater business go away. I think it just enhances the whole media environment, and that there'll be that much more media that people are able to access, and they'll enjoy it that much more.
Also, as well, there's more, it seems, documentaries being released all the time. Do you see that as well?
Yeah, I have noticed that. It's interesting that you say that. I think that communication. If you look at the internet as the huge advance in communication that it is, and that's really what it is, because it's given us ways to interact with one another that we just never had before. I mean, now I can access almost anybody, it seems like, without too much effort. If I can find a way to interact with that person. And so, communication is kind of it's what underlies a democracy or a whole society, and its ability to address issues. And so now that we have this robust media and the ability to put videos and films and all kinds of content out there where people can see it, I think that it's inspiring people to address issues where they never felt like they had any kind of forum or platform for doing that before. And I think that's inspiring people to make documentaries because they know that they have the ability to actually get them seen and find an audience and maybe change the world. And I think that's a wonderful thing.
Let's say with the soundtracks going to some of these films, do you work at all like with finding the proper songs and the rights to publish this stuff?
I actually do. I'm a music supervisor on films on occasion, and that's kind of my primary job, is to find the music and the right music to put into the film. And that's kind of how I moved originally from the music business towards the film business, is that I was representing record companies and songwriters who were putting their music into films, and so I started negotiating those deals, and I started meeting some of the film people as a result, and then gradually got more involved in their industry, and so I continue to have a lot of involvement in that.
Would you say sometimes it's harder to get certain songs issued on this stuff?
Well, sure. I mean, anytime you're going for a really popular song, you're going to have to pay more for it. And what's interesting is the way that the music industry and the film industry have played off of one another here, is that song publishers, and I don't know, I don't want to get too much into the technical stuff, and I don't know how much you know about it, but there's the composition and then there's the recording, and you have to license both of them to put them into film or television. And so the music publishers control the compositions, and the record labels, or now sometimes the artists, but we'll just say the record labels control the recordings. Well, it used to be that the record labels wanted to get their music into film and television because they were going to sell more records. And the publishers went along with that because as the record labels sold more records, they were paying more money to the publishers in terms of mechanical royalties. Well, now the record labels don't sell as many records as they used to, as you know. And so the publishers have tried to replace that revenue that they were getting from mechanical royalties with higher licensing fees, which are called sync fees or synchronization fees from film. And so it's much more, much more difficult, but certainly more difficult now to negotiate with a publisher if the publisher has a popular song than it used to be, because they really want to make some good money off of that transaction. And so, with a record label, theoretically, if you can get the rights to the song, you could go re-record after you original recording of it. But you have to deal with the publisher if you're going to use a particular song, and they've made it really difficult. And then sometimes it's cost prohibitive to get the song you want, and you have to find something else.
Certainly in the lower budgets of films, sometimes they suffer with the music, because they can't get the right songs, let's say.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, although from my standpoint, in my role as a music supervisor, I found that there's so much great independent music out there because people are able to make really high quality recordings now using relatively inexpensive equipment, and so there are just thousands and thousands of wonderful songs out there, and tons of very talented people that can create great music for a film for relatively nothing. I mean, it's just very inexpensive for them to do that, and sometimes they're willing to put the music very inexpensively because they know that if it's going to go into broadcast or into other places where they're going to get performance royalties, that it's going to be worth their while to have it in the film. And so, while it's more expensive to get really popular music, it's become less expensive to get high-quality music from independent artists.
And there you're helping the independent artists, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, I love being able to find somebody new who's never had a break and be able to put their music into a movie. And it's not only it makes me look good with my boss because the producers are really happy that I'm able to bring in good music for not much money, but it makes me feel really good. It's very gratifying to be able to discover new people.
Well, Roger, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
And very good subjects.
Super. I enjoyed it. Thank you.